Hey, this is Hans from Dakota Angler and Outfitter in Rapid City, South Dakota. And today we're going to tie the weight scud. It's not a very creative name, but it tells you what the fly is for. I just got done fishing a few days on the Bighorn River in Montana. And this fly was inspired by a fly I saw in the Missouri River in Montana, but something I've got to test a little bit more over the last couple years. Basically, you just use this particular fly as your source of weight to get you down when you're nymph fishing in the style that you end up doing on a lot of western rivers, where typically you have a big strike indicator and two flies, but also a big chunk of split shot or putty. And in this case, what I've done is just omitted having to use putty or split shot by having a scud hook. In this case, I'm tying a size 10 scud on a curved scud style hook, and I have a tungsten bead 5/32. And now I'm going to add weight in the form of lead tape, so I can build up a little bit of a taper. You could also use lead wire, but what this allows me to do is essentially, and this is what I did this whole past weekend, was just use this fly instead of using split shot. And the nice thing is there's one fewer hinge on your leader rig, and the weight is typically the biggest source of a hinge on one of those type of nymphing rigs, which causes a lot of tangles. And in this instance, I was able to use just this fly and my dropper fly and no split shot, and I got down to the bottom and I caught plenty of fish, and I didn't have as many tangles due to the fact that I had the extra or that I didn't have to have the split shot on. So I've got this weighted up now with lead tape. Start with some white thread. Just kind of cover things up a little bit, make sure that it's not going anywhere. And so there's the basis of my fly. My weight fly. I've got a lot of weight there now. And when I was fishing this fly this weekend, I had a 9-foot 4X. It was actually a 10-foot 4X leader and a couple feet of tippet. So I was fishing a pretty long leader, but that's important when you're fishing the Bighorn, and you've got to get down deep in fairly quick water, especially when they have the flows up to almost 7,000 like they did this weekend. And then I had this fly on and a dropper on, and I didn't have any additional weight on, and I caught fish both on the weight scud and I caught fish on my droppers. So just made fishing a lot easier, especially at the high flow and with actually quite a bit of wind. Casting was difficult enough, let alone having to have a big chunk of split shot and lead putty or tungsten putty on. So next, now that I've got my lead underbody tied, I'll go ahead and I'll tie in some clear thin skin. You could also use scud back. Either one will work on this fly. It's kind of the weight concept that's important here. And I'll tie that down on the back of the fly. You can adapt any other kind of pattern to follow this. You could do a check nymph in this fashion too. So now I've got my thin skin tied in on the back. I'm going to tie in a piece of silver wire for a rib. You could also use monofilament. That would work just fine. But I'm going to use silver wire. This was the exact fly. Same materials that I was using on the Bighorn. Tie in my silver wire. Now I need to grab some dubbing for the body, and for the body I'm going to use shrimp pink ice dub. So I'm going to use shrimp pink ice dub. This color works really well for me on tailwaters. You could use any other kind of scud dubbing that you're used to using if you've got a favorite color. I like the shrimp pink kind of in a lot of situations, but especially tailwaters like the Bighorn. It seems to work very well. And we'll just dub that right up to the area behind the bead. I'm making this fly kind of fat, but that seemed to work just fine this weekend. Surprising how big a scud the fish on the Bighorn will eat, and a lot of the other trout waters I fish, they'll eat a fairly big scud. When a lot of people are fishing size 16s, I'll be fishing on average a size 12 scud. Don't know why, but that seems to work just fine for me. Okay, and now I'll go ahead and put my shellback over the back. Kind of pull that up, stretch that over the back, and then tie it down behind the bead. Got a bit of a bobbin malfunction here. Wrestling with it. Get that tied down. Throw in a quick half hitch so that the thin skin won't come undone. And we'll trim off the extra thin skin here at the front. Now we'll rib the fly. Get that first wrap started there. There we go. Let's get some bite. Work our way forward. Getting a good bite into the thin skin. And when we get to the front of the hook, we'll tie off. Trim off our extra wire. Then we can do a whip finish. Oops. Hands are a little rough from the wind and the water over on the Bighorn, so the old thread likes to splay a little bit. There we go. We can trim off our excess. So we trim off our thread, we can go ahead and pick out a few legs. And also at the same time apply a little bit of head cement to the front of the fly, just to make sure that that thread that's exposed at the head isn't going to go anywhere. We'll give that a good little coating of head cement, and then just tease out a few little legs. Ice dub seems to tease out fairly well. You don't have to get too carried away. Just work out a few legs. Trim off those if they've gotten a little long. And that's more or less it. This fly could be your ticket to frustration-free fishing. Next time you're doing a large strike indicator type rig on a western tailwater, where you often use the scud pattern, or you could adapt this to be a caddis larva pattern. But this particular fly works well, I know for a fact, on the Bighorn, and the first place I saw this fly in a slightly different form, but essentially the same fly, was on the Missouri River with the Headhunter Fly Shop crew. So give this fly a try. Worked awesome for me this past weekend and made life a lot easier. Again, I'm Hans from Dakota Angler and Outfitter in Rapid City, South Dakota. We just finished tying the weight scud.